Excuse me, but I can't hear you.
Hey, Tony, you can hear us?
I can now. It's just come
Very
on.
good.
Good.
It's 10:42 and we're good to go. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We would like to recognize that this meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Lillooet Nation. Do I have approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. And there is no closed meeting. Rise and report for closed meeting now and consent agenda.
I'd like to move the consent agenda.
I'll second it. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Business arising from the minutes, none. Welcome, Chair Ford.
Sorry,
Staff reports and other business. CAO verbal update.
I don't have one.
Oh my.
I know, I just thought I've been talking so much lately, but no, I don't have one today. So,
Okay,
thank you.
well, there it is. Thank you. Do I need to move that? Just receive it or nothing? Perfect. Information report, 7.2. And just a minute, discuss. So do we have Suzanne in? If there's any.
Colin's here.
Colin's here? Good. Morning, Colin.
Good morning, everyone.
Does anybody have any questions on the select funds? Okay, Sal's going to start it off then.
Sure.
Yeah, on the electoral area A, on the 2022 allocations committed, there's a Bridge River Valley Housing Society.
Yep.
Municipal fund. And
We actually just received confirmation that we got the grant funds, so I'm actually building a check rec to pay that amount today.
okay, thank you. I wasn't anticipating that, which is put a little bit of crunch into my what I got left, but I'll have to amend the motion farther down.
Okay, you're
That's
okay?
fine. I'm fine, yeah.
Okay, Vivian, do you have anything to ask Colin?
I do. Thank you. I'd like to, within the Area B select funds, Colin, I'd like to have a resolution, make a resolution to move what is now in the reserve balance, account number 30112, $70,000 plus there. Are you with me? I'd like to move that into general select up above. And Suzanne suggested I do this. So that's my motion.
And is that for area B?
Oh yeah, Area B select. I'm certainly not
Okay,
going to
so you moved it, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Suzanne did look into the history of this fund and told me that that was an appropriate thing to do, so.
okay. So moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, was motion carried. So that's just gonna be, that number is just gonna go back up to your funds not spent or committed or whatever.
Yes, and I do have some ideas for it. Yeah, related to wildfire, but
Okay, Tony, do you have any questions?
can't hear Tony.
It's muted.
No, I'm okay today. Thank you. Except I can't hear anybody again.
Sorry. Can you hear us now?
Oh, yeah, there you are. Yep.
Okay, so okay. Area B select funds in 2009. And then it was to be assisting fuel mitigation projects through grant funding that were only funded by about 75 to 95. So there was sort of that other matching component to that fund. But this, these grants are not being used any longer.
Yeah.
It's not being offered. So they're sitting there. There were no bylaws officially created to allocate the funds, but at this point, it wouldn't make sense to go ahead with that process, but that they could just be reversed back into the funds that they came
And
from.
Mickey had done that.
Yeah,
Did-
Time.
Okay,
he did, and I did access the funds early 5 years ago for some prescriptions on Crown land, and that was great, but there's other funds available for doing those things now. And so keeping them there kind of has to be,
Yeah.
has made them
Put
inaccessible.
them back where you can use them. Excellent. Okay, and I'm okay for area C.
Indeed.
So I think that's good, Colin. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, motion to receive,
So moved.
moved and seconded. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. It is Sue. Okay, the next one is 7.3, request for decision, Black Tusk, electoral area D, DVP application 175. And Kim and Ann are here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, directors. I can speak to this one.
Hey, please.
Yes, so this variance application is to allow for stairs to be added to a rear deck on a property in the Pinecrest neighborhood. So this deck completely encroaches onto the rear setback and has previously received a variance permit to remain in its existing location. As the stairs are a new addition to the deck, the property owner has applied for this additional variance. And so the stairs are meant to allow access to a hot tub. The rear setback was previously reduced from 4.5 meters to 0 meters, and this variance seeks the same reduction for the stair addition. And that pretty much summarizes the application. Let me know if you have any question.
Yeah.
Claire? Hello? Can you hear me? But my only question, Anna, is did we get any response at all from other members of the community?
We have not so far.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you want to move option one, Tony?
I'll move it. Yes, thank you.
Vivian's going to second it. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Okay, 7.4 is a direction request civic address signage and installation. You want to talk to this, Vivian?
Yep. So I can speak to this one as well.
Okay, Anna.
So this report seeks direction in how to proceed regarding civic address signage procurement and installation. And so in light of the difficulties experienced by emergency services during the recent wildfires and locating properties along the Highline Road, staff are proposing to run a pilot project whereby standard compliant reflective civic address signs are procured and or installed by the district. The first option would be to do something similar to the Thompson-Nicola Regional District, which would be to purchase individual civic address signs for the 33 properties on the west side of Anderson Lake and have the property owner pick up and install the addresses themselves. This would cost the district about $50 a sign. And the second option would be to contract a company that would create and install the signs on a pole for $275 per sign. Let me know if you have any questions, and please provide direction in how you would like for staff to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the time doing this report. We've known for a long time that the signage on the High Line and other neighborhoods in Area B is inadequate. And in particular for emergency response, it becomes a real issue, and it certainly did on the High Line in the fire season. And I think without the help of Fire Warden Mike Morley directing RCMP and working with our staff, I'm not sure how well some of those evacuation notices, there would have been a lot of delays and confusion, and it's hard enough in those circumstances. So if we can make this more efficient, first of all, I believe that we should just purchase the 33 signs for starters. And I'm not sure if having a contractor put the poles up, and I mean, I'm not sure I have confidence in the contractor going, we have the actual Area B sign in the wrong place, which is something else that I'd like to fix. So I'd really like whoever installs the signs to have some kind of quality, like maybe they could work with Mike Morley, who would probably help and make sure they got put in the right place. And in that case, I have some new funds in my Area B select to help pay for some of this. So yes, sorry, Ms. Needham. I'll stop because I'd like to hear from staff first.
Thank you. Because these signs would be installed on private property, we would have to have staff alongside any contractor. So the staff would be directing where these got installed. The risk of us not installing these is that they would sit on someone's kitchen counter and never get installed.
I'd love to see them installed. Yeah.
Chair?
Yeah, I agree too. That recommendation or comment you made about having Mike Morley help out or just point out where they need to go, that's a really good idea, because he knows that whole corridor better than anybody. So that would save a lot of time and not having them go in the wrong place. But I noticed, like, when you go past Pavilion Lake,
Yep.
and you get into the TNRD, well, it's all the way to Merritt's, to Spence's Bridge, everywhere. Their signs are like a fluorescent, greenish yellow, whatever, maybe a foot by 4 inches, 5 inches. Numbers are big, black, and every driveway's got one.
Yes.
Right? And yeah, that's really good from an emergency point of view, and just from somebody looking for somebody's place, right? So I think to follow them would be the way to go. Just duplicate what they've done, size-wise, everything, colors, and go from there.
Well, then I think that's the research that Ms. Katernik did with the TNRD.
Yeah.
I also see these costs. There's costs that are also associated with Area C. So I'm good for Area B, just by the way. So, and see Tony has his hand up.
So like at the Ponderosa and McGilvery, actually we'll do it right now because your sign is in the wrong area.
I know.
That's funny. So I go.
Arguing over your jurisdiction.
No, yeah, well, I'm telling Vivian she owes Area C a lot of money, right? Because we've been funding all her stuff. But anyways, yeah, so that sign needs to go on the other side of McGilvery.
Indeed.
Tony, go ahead.
Okay, I recall this being raised once before about whether we should
I'll pick Tony up next time and bring him myself.
Just having a technical difficulty here with Tony's audio.
So we need a resolution on this.
Call a recess?
Is that from our end or me? Is that?
No, because the other two are still live, so.
5-minute
Yeah,
recess.
let's have a
And
5-minute
we can get a
recess.
hold of him and see.
Okay. We will have a 5-minute recess. Try and fix this problem.
Which gives me a chance to ask you if you're okay with option one.
Okay, we're good to go. So Tony's on the phone, or is he actually there? Because when he we couldn't hear him, he was frozen. He's moving. Okay, we'll carry on.
Tony, want to make a comment?
Yeah. Tony, do you want to make a comment on the signage?
Oh, no. Okay, I'm gonna admit his phone.
I think his comment was going to be, we got it back on the, because we as a group did discuss this at the board table about doing signage a number of years.
It was a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, a few years ago, right? And we talked about it quite a bit, and then it kind of just,
Got busy.
yeah, I think we just sort of lost enthusiasm for it when we started to
Actually, the
find out.
staff did some work for B, which was inquiring about the prices of signs.
Yeah,
And you know,
absolutely.
they can be picked up by owners at cost.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely, that did happen, but then we got to that point and we never proceeded any further.
Wait, was that any new building permits? They had to get the signs. That's where it ended up.
that's right, that's what.
Yeah.
I see Miss Anita wants to say something. Sorry.
Kim wanted to make did you want to make a comment, Kim? Is that, no? Okay.
Okay, so is Tony, can he hear us or we don't know?
Almost like he's frozen again.
Well, no, it's me.
Well, I think I'm gonna make an
That's a
executive
good
decision
point, that's a good point.
Yeah.
and we're just gonna carry on and see if this thing works itself out.
You can call in.
Yeah,
He is calling
Yeah.
it, right? Is that his phone there?
No, he keeps getting kicked out.
Oh, and
Give him a phone call and tell him to phone in.
yeah, I gave you
She already
all
did
the
that.
information. Yeah.
that's already been done.
He says.
So anyways, we're gonna move along here. So Vivian would like to move option 2.
That's right. Providing civic address signage on the west side of Anderson Lake as a pilot project. So the SLRD would be providing both signs and installation, ensuring that all signs were actually put in place. The SLRD will need to notify all property owners that this activity is underway and advise them of installation dates.
Yeah, and I will second that. But I think what we should do is make sure that part of this is that we get Mike Morley involved in the say the discussion on where to put them and all that sort of stuff. Because like I say, he knows more about the Highline area than,
Well, as the fire warden, he was involved in a
Yeah,
lot of
exactly.
alerts and evacuation last time
but
around.
he's involved with everything up here, so he knows the lay of the land better than anybody. So
So, okay.
moved and seconded. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
So,
Yay.
Chair.
Could this be before the next?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is actually quite important, especially for Area A. And during the wildfire, GoBridge got together, the people that stayed and did what they did. But one of the things they did was actually make cardboard signs and put them on every property because nobody's got addresses there. And just shows you the importance of that.
Oh, absolutely.
But, so this is a pilot, and do you think before next spring, or do we put a timeline on this, and do we know where these funds are coming from? Are they just assumed to be coming out of our respective select funds, which is fine with me,
Yeah,
okay? Is it reasonable to think about before next fire season, also known as spring 2022? Because we're in a drought. Fire season.
I think we,
Sorry.
if I may, maybe we look to staff to, they're gonna get the ball rolling and then they bring back sort of a report before we obviously get into the wildfire season to see how this is working. Maybe, I'm not sure how quickly this will roll out, but give them an opportunity to see how quickly they can get things done and what it's gonna look like to get contractor and bring information back to the EAD to look at what another pilot for another, or a whole program might maybe for the quality areas. Yeah. Okay.
Another aspect to it was that Gun Lake Fire was helping to go to all the various properties at Gun Lake when we got evacuated. And I remember vividly the Gun Lake Fire person that came down our property says, "Where is this number?" Well, it was a new number that was across the road that people got that number when they put the building permit in. And they were using an old map. I said, "Let me see your map." And they were using an old map that the SLRD provided years ago. So the updating of all these maps that are out there have to have those new addresses on them also. And some of the properties that were affected by the wildfire didn't have addresses, so they've gone in and gotten their addresses also. So we still have some properties there that don't have addresses because it's not mandatory to have the addresses. It is, but nobody's been enforcing it.
yeah, and I mean, this is throughout the regional district.
Yeah.
You know, when I drive home, lots of people have them, the majority of people actually have them, but there's some that don't. So you just gotta bring everybody up, and I think maybe once we get going, using the actual fire departments in the area as the contacts to go and make sure the addresses are there. Because as Chief Rob will tell you, I mean, it's absolutely critical to have an address that's visible when you're going to an emergency call, especially when it's at 2 a.m.
Yep.
You know, it's peeing down rain and all that stuff. So you have to have.
Just one more comment, on Texas Creek, they do have some good residential signage. And I don't know the history there, I'll try and find out. But as well as finding out what TNRD did, maybe just checking on how that was successful at Texas Creek might be worth the footwork too. So another thing to consider. I'll find out.
Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We did reach out to the TNRD. There aren't a lot of staff who seem to remember the program, and it sounds like it didn't go well in the end, and so they stopped it. So nobody there seems to know why, but in the end, I guess it wasn't successful because they stopped it. But it was successful in that a lot of addresses were provided with signs, but we weren't really able to get a great handle on what exactly their program was. Nobody seemed to recall. Ms. Koterniak might want to add to that, but that's the gist of what I understand.
Well, I'm sure that we can figure this out. To me, it's not brain surgery. It's, you know, everybody, you come up with a size for the sign, the color you want. I think her colors are really good. They're very, very noticeable. And then, you know, like you said, with new building permits, you don't get your building permit. That's just part and parcel of it. And then the fire department of the area, they can, when they're out doing district check or whatever, they can make sure that people do have their addresses. If they notice one that doesn't, they know everybody in the area. So it may not happen overnight, but I'm sure we can get this figured out. All we need to do is have the funding in place to provide the actual address or whatever you want to say. So, yes.
We didn't specify where the funds are coming for this, which.
Okay,
we should
so from
probably-
area B and C select funds.
We should confirm that.
Yeah.
You guys are good with that.
So you need a resolution on that. So
Yeah,
let's resolve to cover these costs for area B, the pilot project signage from area B and C select funds respectively as outlined in this report.
yeah. You move it, I'll second it. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Okay, we're all good with that? Okay, thank you for that. So just better put down here. Okay, 7.5 is a direction request for that's set up. Okay, direction request, public toilet Wedgewoods SLRD lands. Staff is seeking direction from the electoral area directors committee with regard to funding for the installation of a urine diverting toilet system on SLRD lands at 6430 Sea to Sky Highway, electoral area C. And I've already, hi Allison.
Hi.
Yeah, I've talked to Allison about this. The Tourism Pemberton, they put in a whole bunch of these units throughout, well, area C for sure. Did they go elsewhere?
If they got as far as Semaphore, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Semaphore and then so, but anyways, yeah, and then their funding, the amount of funding they got ran out. They still have, I don't know how many they have actual left that they bought. So, anyways, yeah, I'm, as I said to you, I'm fully in support of this. So, and the recommendation from Suzanne was to use amenity funds from the Wedgewoods amenity package, which was for recreation.
The recreation portion, even the
Yeah.
funds for Area C.
Yeah, and I'm fully supportive of that. So,
Just one question.
yeah. go ahead.
Hello, Russell. Hello. Can you
Hello,
hear
Tony.
I've been sitting listening to the to the meeting, so I'm aware of what's going on. Just one comment about these toilets. We've had a couple at Furry Creek Beach for almost 4 years now, and they are excellent. They work really well, and the maintenance is absolutely minimal. So I really think they're a great idea.
Very good, thank you. So,
I'm just curious on the map, whereabouts are the picnic tables and where is the toilet gonna go?
If you drive into Wedgewoods, there's sort of a parking area, and then a little drop down, and they've cleared a space directly east of the parking area, and the toilet will go a little bit north, just at where the trees kind of start. Right now, it's a toilet paper garden in there. Really, it's going to be great to get this.
So you enter it from Wedgewoods?
Wedgewoods, yeah.
Okay.
Before you cross the bridge, it's just a parking lot right there, and then there's a little piece of land that the SLRD is adjacent to.
not into the community of Wedgewoods.
Right.
Where you cross the railway tracks down further,
Okay.
you'll see, you go around the corner. Creek is there, the river, and there's always a bunch of vehicles parked right in that parking lot. And it's just down
Oh,
on the
okay.
flat between the river and the parking lot, I guess.
This is the recreation trail
Yeah,
head rather
Yeah.
than into the neighborhood.
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thanks.
No, I think this is a really good, the more of these things we get out and about, the better it is with the amount of people we have coming now, and it's, you know, it's gonna get more and more and more, so I think that's an excellent idea. So anyways, I will move option 1, which is move ahead with the project with funding to be determined by the Electoral Area Directors Committee. So it's gonna come out of Area C amenity funds from the Wedgwood allotment that they put forward for recreation. And that's what Suzanne recommended we do. So,
I'll second that.
okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
How much leftover stock is there? I could use a few of these.
Well,
Sitting here, I thought I probably should have asked that question, and I will, if
Okay.
anyone's interested.
That seems a pretty fair price for that.
yeah, it is, but because the one that we had put at Gates Lake, that was almost 20,000. And that was like, what, 6 or 7 years ago?
It's a vault, it's a much.
It's a vault, yeah. But that's a really nice unit too. Like, you know, completely separate from, nothing leaks into the landscapes or anything. It's really nice. So, but anyways, will you check and see what they have left in stock?
I will.
Because obviously there are more places throughout the regional district where we could put these strategically. So,
I have one question on the maintenance aspect of it. It looked like it was
Really no.
$2,400 a year of maintenance.
Yeah, cleaning, you need this one will need a regular cleaning,
Where's-
some will need less than.
Where's that funding going to come from?
That will come from the Area C Parks Service, cost center 3007. That's what I believe I put that in. It will come up for the financial plan discussions.
Okay, thank you.
you don't want to pay for that? Anyways, thank you very much. So I'll move to second, call the question, all that stuff. Okay, perfect. Now we go to, thanks, Allison. Okay, information report, Gold Bridge Transfer Station, septic trench update. Omar,
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to review that report, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. Mary Lou's
you have any
today.
questions, Sal?
No, not at all. The work that was done looks really good though, in the pictures.
Okay, so all we need to do is,
Maybe I do have one question. Right now, we've got all the properties that were affected should be pumping out their septic tanks if they've got them. I'm not sure that all of them have septic tanks. And looking at the pictures, it looks like it's ready to be used.
Yeah.
So is it gonna open up fairly soon?
Well, we still have the same requirement. Our permit only allows 100 cubic meters per year.
Right.
And so we've already reached our maximum per
You
year.
couldn't ask for an exception since it's empty.
We could do
Could
the
you
best
do that, please?
Yeah.
Because it's important that, because a lot of these tanks, they got plastic covers, they're gone. They're melted.
Yeah.
And you know, the spout that comes up. Because I've seen them, they're also kind of melted. So they're open to the air unless they've covered them. Okay, thank you.
so we will move and second this. Receive. Vivian,
Just wanted to mention that Split Rock Environmental sells packages of local native seeds. Just in case you were looking for them. Yes, I'm in favor.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Vivian, for that. Okay, moved, seconded by Sal. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Perfect. And now, information report. SLRD Fire Services Review Update.
Yeah.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair.
Start off or?
Sure.
Yeah.
We just, Jack, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you. I'm here.
Okay, good. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I can just start, I'll just introduce, I will hand it over to Chief Van Dern and to Jack Blair, advisor with the Office of the Fire Commissioner. But today we want to just provide an information report related to the SLRD Fire Services Review Project. And for hand over, I just want to preface that this is an update on a project that is very much still underway. And we will be bringing those kind of final recommendations and our findings to the board in January as well. But I'll hand it over to Chief Van Dern to provide the update.
Thank you, Mark. So the Fire Services Review Project kicked off spring of this year. It started with an analysis of the provincial regulation and legislation as it relates to us, regional level of government. I've written a report summarizing the legislation and regulation. It's going to be available as an output of the project. I've also analyzed how the SLRD has operationalized and established fire services across the region. It is a mixed model currently. And I've also created an audit toolkit to be used to create a baseline and kind of get a snapshot of where we're at in the region for the various implementation of fire services that we're offering to our constituents. And to wrap up the project will be a final report along with a series of recommendations specific to every region and every area A through D. In terms of the project thus far, real quick preliminary findings worth noting is Area D and the growth in the House on East expansion project. Some serious project management is going to be required there to effectively scale. And so there'll be more in my final report as to the various things to focus on there. And then next is how we've operationalized fire societies in the regional district via a financial contribution agreement model. And so we've set up fire protection boundaries that serve as a taxation catchment. And we provide an annual contribution to our fire societies. And that model does exist or has existed elsewhere in the province, but typically it's not designed as a long-term solution. It's typically an interim solution. And the SLRD did do some rewriting of that arrangement in 2018, thanks to the great work that Director Wainwright and Sarah Morgan had done. But I'd like to propose as a preliminary suggestion is that operationalizing fire services in that way at arm's length without providing oversight, support, and ensuring due diligence and accountability and working towards a clear standard of care is not conducive to a safe and sustainable operating environment. And I'll go more into that in my final report. And this, because of the increasingly regimented regulatory environment as well. And so the province has done the best they can to sort of create a framework for fire services delivery from what is otherwise an ambiguous regulatory structure. So just to wrap up, targeting by end of year to have a more comprehensive review along with recommendations, individualized for each area. at the completion of my report.
Thank you. One thing that you mentioned was that the regional district, contributes money, say to the Burke Fire Society, but they actually put that money in through taxation. So all we're doing is collecting the money and then directing it back to the society. We're not giving them that money. It's their money, right? I think we have to keep that in mind, obviously. I guess my big concern with where the province is going with this whole fire service thing, it all comes down to money. When you have these small rural areas that are, they're providing the best fire protection they can for the amount of money that they have. And, like as Birken has stepped up their game quite dramatically with the new fire chief and you being involved, Meadows, the same thing. So they're working towards something. But I guess the issue I have is, and when I sat on that fire review committee last year, my biggest concern, and it still is where does all this money come from? If you have, like I spent 27 years in the Richmond Fire Department, they have a pretty good budget, same with all the other departments down there. And they have a tax base, commercial tax base or whatever to draw that money from. We don't. So if you want to have these small rural fire departments meet the same standards, and before I go into that, I'll say, number one thing is the safety of your firefighters. And then number two is their training, their equipment. So you got to do all that stuff. I understand that. But then when you get to record keeping and all that, it's almost like you need to have a full-time person. Say the regional district had a full-time person that managed the record keeping for all these departments. Because take the Meadows Fire Department. Most of those folks are, farmers, and they're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day for the most part of the time of the year, right? They don't have time to go to a call, put the time and effort in and the training and all that stuff, and then go and have somebody keep track of all the records. I mean, you can make out an incident call sheet and then pass that off to somebody and have that documentation tracked the way you want it. But I think we need to look at something like that, because those small departments, they don't have the wherewithal or the manpower to do that, right? And my big concern when I was on that panel was is the money. And the money has to, like, if the province wants to put out the money for all this stuff and how to, the training on and on and on, fine and dandy. But they've never really stepped up as long as I've been doing this. And, I was in the fire service for 41 years, and it was always a grind to get money for stuff. And the training is extremely expensive, as you well know, sending somebody to sea shelter, the JI, it's very expensive, even for a paid department. I know when I was in Richmond, we used to send people out to the JI all the time for live fire and stuff, and it was a huge, huge hit on their budget, their training budget. We did the same thing here when I was the fire chief here. We would send people to the JI for lots of training, and it's very, very expensive. So we got to figure out where that money comes from, and for it to come from the taxpayer at the local level, that's pretty much impossible. So that always has to be in the back of the mind of yourself and Mark and the fire commissioner's office. You got to kind of keep it in perspective to try and duplicate what's going on in a fully paid department. And then expect that same level. Like I said, as far as the basic stuff, training, firefighter safety, all that, that's all got to be the same. I understand that. But finances are a huge part of this. Jen.
I think you make some really good points that the expectation of not only the people in the department within the regional district, as well as the community, have to level their expectations to the ability to pay. There's only one taxpayer. At the end of the day,
Yep.
there's only one taxpayer. So, you know, if you're living up the meadows, your expectation of how quickly the response time, yes, there's a basic level of care required that we should all expect, but there are levels of care that you can expect in Richmond that you cannot expect in Pemberton or in the meadows. And so I think, you know, how you can a question, given the new legislation from Bill 31, I believe it is, with the emergency management and climate readiness bill that came out 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, there are new requirements for the local government to have partnering agreements with the First Nations and with member municipalities. How is that captured in your review?
Really great question. If I may, through the chair, is top up really quick and then address that question is ultimately we deliver services on behalf of the membership of citizens that we serve.
Mm-hmm.
So community consultation is a part of the process I would recommend is reestablishing that connection with the community because they're the ones that are investing in service and checking to see what it is that they desire and what it is they're willing to invest in. I think there are examples in the regional district of successful partnership and Seed Portage and Squamish-Lillooet are a great example. The Seed Portage community now enjoys a dwelling protection grade of 4 because of that partnership, which means their homes are now insurable at a reasonable cost for them. So great success there too, but also in terms of the meadows, I realize they're fully independent, but residents of the meadows also enjoy a really good dwelling protection scoring as interpreted by the fire underwriters because of the partnership with the Village of Pemberton and the work that Chief Grossman had done prior. And so those are examples of really successful collaborations. And then one other thing to top up on some of the feedback is, and I capture this in my report as well, is I don't think it's fair to require the society to do all that administration on their own because they like at a core is they're going to be busy doing recruitment and retention and training and practicing and maintenance. And so to be burdened with all that other stuff that's a requirement per the regulation sets them up to fail. So a part of the notion of centralized administration, formalizing our role as the authority having jurisdiction and all the obligations therein is you get economies of scale and you get centralized record keeping and you have standardized service delivery and then you have interoperability and then you have the opportunity to train together. It's really what I propose in my final report is the best way to operationalize and modernize the fire service going forward.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds very good. I think the most important thing in my mind going forward, and I'm sure you've already thought of this, is to have a really good rapport with all the different fire departments, right? So that when you're talking to the chief in Birken or Gun Lake or wherever, they know you. You guys have met casually for coffee or whatever, but it's not just somebody phoning up saying, hey, you got to do this, this, and this. So I think that one-on-one just dialogue is so important and getting to know all these people and getting to know the situation that they're all dealing with because they're all different. Like I know for a fact, just looking at Birken and looking at the meadows or looking at the department downstairs, they all are different. But if we can get everybody working together, and I'm gonna say that's gonna be your job going forward, and that's good. I think it'll work out really well in the end, right? And back to the most important thing in this whole deal is the safety of your people. You know, all the equipment stuff, the training stuff, that's not life threatening. But there is stuff there that could make it life threatening, but you want to eliminate all that stuff so that when your folks go to a call, you know damn well that they're going to have 100% chance or 99% chance of going home to have dinner that night. So they need to be trained right, have the ready and all that stuff. But no, I think it's an invaluable thing that the board hired yourself, and Mark's doing a great job. Everybody's doing a great job. So it's a good thing. So
I have a few questions. And the first one is, in your report, yet we may still, in fact, assume vicarious civil liability as the authority having jurisdiction. I wonder if you can expand on that and why this is so important.
Yeah, so the authority having jurisdiction is a concept that was introduced in the Fire Services Act, I believe, and jump in, Jack, and correct me if I get some of this wrong, which is now the Fire Safety Act. And essentially, and this I articulated in my report as well, is just by the very act of providing funding to a group, is you by then default assume this function that has obligations within, and that is the function of the authority having jurisdiction. And there are a variety of things and obligations within that function with respect to operationalizing the fire service, ensuring that they have the authority to act, enter private property, for example, let me go back 1 second here. There's a bunch of stuff, and I have this written in my report, and maybe I can share you a draft copy as well. That function is intended to build a structure of fire service delivery that is sustainable and safe. And I am suggesting that that the SLRD, by way of just the very act of giving that money, is they assume that the role and the obligation of the HJ, and we haven't met those obligations. And I would like to change that. And I suspect that there are vicarious and civil liabilities that can be assumed to the SLRD. There is language within the financial contribution agreement where we've attempted to indemnify ourselves. But I suspect that that tie to the authority having jurisdiction still resides with us. And there are various obligations that we need to fulfill when delivering a service that is otherwise dangerous and risky for firefighters, for citizens. There's potential for property damage and harm in general. And we would be responsible for the acts and omissions of any of the groups that are functioning in this service delivery. And currently we don't have oversight. And I recognize that the SLRD and the board has invested in the protective services team to help fix this. And that's what I'm here to do and to help. And I'm going to suggest it as a part of my reports on some of the policies going forward in terms of how we establish new fire services and how we fix and address some of the gaps that exist in our current implementation as well. Does that answer your question, Director?
Somewhat, because I know since I was the president of the Gun Lake Fire for 2 years and helped get them organized, that society was not to enter private property. They were basically wildland fire fighters. They could enter the property if it was a numbered fire, and if BC Wildfire Service says they could. And if they did, then they would be under their direction and insurance. That was all set up like that right from the beginning. I did work with the Lillooet Fire Zone manager there, Vern Rasmussen, on that. But we're going back to 2011, 12, when I was president at that time. So I'm just curious, in your report, when you talk to all these various fire departments, I talked to the fire chief from Braylorn yesterday, I commented and shared this report with him. And I asked him, you know, what percentage of wildland fires are you participating in? Which is actually, most of them are out of their boundary, their service area. And compared to structural fires, and it's 10-1. 10-1 wildland fire compared to structural. And on the structural side of firefighting, you know, is there accreditation for external firefighting as compared to internal firefighting? So that whole concept of training for wildland fire, which they do most of, which they actually weren't up to stuff. Now they're getting there. You know, they've had a structural firefighter training, they've had S100, some of them had crew leader training, so on and so forth. So there's that whole concept of what these fire departments are actually serving the public for. And that whole communication of it is critical. I've always thought, you know, we talked about a little bit before of terms of reference for these tax services. So that somewhere there's some accountability to them from the taxpayers. So there's actually that accountability. And I use the term terms of reference but you could also have it in the bylaws for these various fire departments. As you know, there's Goldbridge Fire Prevention Society now. They're an actual society, and they want to look at a tax service and moving forward. So it'd be interesting to see what you've actually got in your report, but all those are pretty critical. Then there's the last piece of it all is some of these associations like Texas Creek, which actually doesn't have one. Marshall Valley, that is part of the BRVCA now, that we're contributing to, all of us are, there's Squamish Valley too, that we're contributing funds for fuel mitigation funding so they can buy equipment. And they all have to sign off that they will not use it for fighting fires, but for fuel mitigation. Which fuel mitigation, you're actually lighting small fires and you need all the equipment to be able to do it, including pumps and hoses and so on and so forth. I know that the SLRD, especially at Marshall Valley, has been trying to do projects for Fire Smart, where they bring it in containers to put it all in. And they've had issues with the one they did this year because 2 properties filled it all up and that was it. So everybody else never got to use it. That was to try to get the people to stop having fires on their lots and also in a burn pile somewhere. So there's all these various aspects to this review, and I hope you've captured all that in it.
Thank you, Director. May I top up real quick? Chair, is I think one of the gaps is defining and declaring the scope of service that's being delivered for sure, and compartmentalizing what you can and what you can't do. And then, and your feedback is great, and it's indicative of the complex problem that we have here to solve. One of the things too is we have traditionally in a fire service is the fire department is obligated within its fire protection boundary to serve the folks within that boundary. And there is processes you can put into place to deploy outside of the boundary through CAO approval or whatever it might be. But even in our most mature fire department, Britannia Beach, it's not advisable that they send a team outside of their boundary because they just don't have the scale. Should another call come in and an apparatus is deployed outside of their fire protection boundary, it doesn't reflect well on the department's ability to serve and protect the constituents within that boundary that are actually paying the tax to fund the service. One thing I was going to state as well is, what is it within the boundary that we would want to protect? And traditionally, it's going to be the houses and the homes, and that might actually be the expectation of the members of the community. And in a perfect world, our fire teams would be trained to conduct at a minimum exterior level firefighting in a perfect world, recognizing it's challenging to get there. And there's a bunch of things that have to align to make that happen. So again, it's indicative of a challenging situation that we have in a rural environment here. Lastly, I was just going to touch on real quick to say that as a part of the conclusion of the project too is I'm going to suggest that we create a policy for what it looks like to start a fire service, to establish a fire service. There's two key components: is community consultation to help community understand the various models that exist and what the value add is in investing in a structured firefighting department is creating those insurable communities. And then a feasibility analysis is required. So you need to determine the sustainability of your people power, your water supply, and then estimate what an average budget is going to take and all the things in between, and have those conversations to see if is it something that's tenable and realistic and will match the expectations and desires of community. So I just wanted to top up with that, but thank you for that feedback.
Thanks. And I enjoyed reading this report. Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Tony?
Yeah, just once again, I've been listening to all of this. I've got no visual contact with you at all, but I have been listening to everything. Rob, thanks very much for this report. I'm really interested in it, and I can understand the complexity there because you've got such different levels of service throughout the regional district. And I just wanted to highlight right now the situation in the Upper Squamish. I know that you're aware of it. You've been up and had a look at what they do. But, 8 years ago, they didn't have any fire protection at all. They got together as a community and developed some abilities to fight fire. There isn't really a society, a fire protection society or anything like that. They do it through their community organization. I have funded them through select funds with a few things over the years. So, I have the question that you raised here about what is our responsibility as the authority with jurisdiction. And so I just wanted to sort of note that now with a view to talking to you about it later, about what we might do in that community, what we need to do and what they need to do, because I don't think anybody's paid too much attention to what the liabilities are, who has liability, and so on. So I welcome the chance of having the chance to talk to you about that at some point in the near future as you progress with this report. So thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Vivian.
Thank you, and Chair. I also am always a bit worried that we're going to get so concerned about the risk and the liability and so forth that, if we're careful enough, nothing will happen. And like my little fire groups that you are familiar with, are in various states of disrepair, you know, like, I mean, we have an elderly population. What these volunteers have done over the years is phenomenal. They're having a hard time recruiting into their own groups, but I sure would like to have them out there and operational when the lightning strike hits or the fire happens, because they do actually put fires out. Like, this is pretty important in Area B. And like I'm hoping that I'm reading that we're going to be offering these groups some support rather than telling them what they can't do. And I appreciate that the discussion about, well, I think you described it very well. Sparsely funded, understaffed, you know, struggling to fulfill the associated library of requirements, the minimum training standards and so forth. But this is all true, but they don't need another level of bureaucracy. They need some support to get themselves closer to an operational unit where you're comfortable. And so that's the way I'd like to see us going. And I think that's where you're going. Yeah, that's and I have wanted to provide more funding to these groups, but I would really appreciate if we were also providing them with more actual support. And so thank you. I hope that's the way we're going. We definitely need them out there. I'm thinking about Pavilion and Texas Freak and Yalicum and so forth. It'll be a long time.
I think, like it says here, like the preliminary conclusion of the fire service will include stop any attempt to deliver fire services without direct management. That's a pretty blunt statement. And what happens is those folks out there, because I went through this when it first, the first playbook came along, you know, I had people in the Meadows and in Bergen saying, oh, they're trying to shut us down. They want to stop us. And I'm going, no, that's not what they're trying to do. But then when you look at this statement here, you go, they're going to read that and go, oh, they're going to disband our fire department with all the work and effort and that they put in. So I think it's very, very important to get your message across, but to get it across in a very positive way, that's saying, no, we're not trying to disband your fire department. We're trying to enhance it. And we're trying to make you a better, safer, more efficient, you know, operation. And we're going to figure out a way to fund the basic necessities that we have to do to meet our obligations. But I think it's really important, like wording is so important, because I know these folks out there, they're going to be reading this and going, oh, Christ, here they go again. Now it's more bureaucracy coming, instead of coming and sitting down with us and saying, look, the way this is set up right now, it's not working the way it should or the way we need it to. So we have to do this to make that happen. But we're going to fully support you folks in enhancing your fire department and making sure that you have a basic level of fire protection. I know that I'm going to get calls on this now saying, well, here we go again, right? I'm going, no. That's not what the plan is here. I think it's like, I keep going back to, you know, big established fire departments and all that stuff. We're never going to turn Birken or Gun Lake or the Meadows or anything into, you know, those big departments. We can have the same basic level of safety put into place and stuff like that. But we're never going to have the administration, the training departments and all that. And that's what I was saying when I was at fire committee. The training, there should be so much more help coming from the fire commissioner's office for the training. Now that we have you here, that's a wonderful thing. Because now you can go and help the training officer, the chief, in these departments all over the place, get their program moving forward. But it all comes back to money and then the time commitment that these people have to put in. So I think we just have to be careful how we word it. So
Yeah, it goes to what Vivian was saying. In rural areas, like she's got rural areas, we are rural. Is that our fire teams that we have throughout the valley, they're first responders. When there's a lightning strike or and you'd be amazed at how many they actually take care of every year. I talked about Raylor already. And they're always the first responders. Yes, they call the fire services and say report the fire, and then they're off and running until they come and once BC Wildfire gets there, then they can decide whether they want to use them or not. And so that's why it's critical on the wildland fire side of it. They are our first responders. Todd Lake has a little group. Gun Creek has a little group. They've never asked for funding yet, but I presume that one day they will come for funding. So every area has these little groups ready to go. And all the years that we've been doing the wildland fire training, there's been a lot of people that have had the wildland fire training. This year with the training program, we've talked about putting on 2 crew leader training because now most of them have been involved with incident command program because of that down in Lake Wildfire. And I presume that down in area B, you had the same thing. All these various groups were involved with the incident command program. So it's really critical that just like Russell says, that we help them because they are the first responders. It's a 2-hour drive from Lillooet. By the time they get organized, you're 3 hours.
Yeah.
Whether it's BC ambulance, pick it, unless they fly people in.
just but I want to say one thing. One thing that we have to always keep in mind, that the most important thing in responding to any emergency situation is response time. And when the further out you get, the longer that takes. And the longer that takes, the worse it gets wherever the situation is. So the more people you have trained to a basic level or a safe level out and about, the better off you are. And I'll let Jack take this forward. I wish that BC Wildfire Service would use that example as, response time is critical. So when you get these lightning strikes, go and put them out. Don't wait for 4 or 5 days till they turn into something you will never put out. Mother Nature is the only thing that will. And that's just, anyways, something to look forward to. I've got Nikki here first and then Jen. And apparently lunch just came through the door, but
Did you see that or did someone text you?
no, I saw it. Let me see out the door.
I don't think anyone's disputing the importance of response time and what, these societies or associations or whatever types of groups in rural areas, what role they have to play. I think what we're trying to do is just really define what is that and make sure that everything's checked so that they're able to do what they need to do. The SLRD is comfortable. They're not putting themselves open any risk, or liability in having individuals who are they operating within the requirements that they're supposed to do? And I think also saying, I think there's a lot of experience at the table and going, this is what we would like to, instead of saying, no, you're not, no. Have you thought about this? Maybe this would work better in this situation. How can we, and I think that's really going to be the chief's role in connecting, maybe they will see this section in this report, but I think there's already been that discussion piece with okay, like, we're working on this and these are goals that we need to try to work together on. And it's going to be coming down to that regular meetings, that communication piece that's out there. And I don't think it's hack and slash everything, but how do we really make this work? And I think until we get to that place where we know how that's going to work, and it's going to be different because every region has a different kind of service that's being offered. You know, I think we need to give staff just an opportunity to get that wrapped up and feel that they're really close to kind of having a recommendation and a way forward. And I think that's really this job to be able to roll it out effectively.
I completely agree with you. And the thing is, like with Rob and Mark, these are two of the best guys, and Omar too, that we've ever brought on board because they're doing a wonderful job, and they proved it this past summer, right? So, yeah, I mean, I appreciate these guys probably a lot more than you'd ever imagine, because I was in that business for a long time. So I know what's happening out there. Jen.
And I don't want to repeat what's already been said, but I think we need to bear in mind response time, level of training, level of commitment from volunteers in these areas, and really the capacity of our communities has to be considered. Like down further in the agenda, there's a request for funding from a protection society. It's not that we're not saying, or it's not that we're saying don't respond, but what we're saying is, and I draw this comparison with anyone going out into the backcountry. When you live in these areas that are very, very far and very limited in resources and limited in volunteer capacity and limited in just the sheer number of human bodies in these areas, the ability to respond to a wildfire changes. And so when I think what the report will say is when we say, yes, your society exists and you have this capacity to respond to an emergency, maybe it's a heart attack, maybe it's a catastrophic fire tornado. Our capacity to respond to these has to be very much measured to the capacity of these volunteers and of our organization to be able to respond to these things. So, homeowner, you need to be prepared for some of these things to be self-reliant for a period of time. You're not going to have the Richmond Fire Department and the brigades come rolling in when something happens. So when we legitimize these societies with $10,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, that changes the expectation of the homeowner that someone will be coming. Someone's not coming when you're 4 hours response time from the nearest fire department. So training people up to interior fire suppression or training people up to a basic level of self-rescue, that's the communication that I think our organization needs to be very mindful of. That, handing out $10,000 checks here and there doesn't serve the community well if they're going to say, oh, I'm good, there's a fire department, they're going to take care of me. That's not the case. And so I think that's where you're trying to get.
Yeah, the key is if we're going to set up tax services, that there has to be accountability in it. So terms of reference.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it for years on that Gun Lake fire, that they need a terms of reference. That's one of their criticisms of the SLRD, because they have criticized the SLRD, is, they want stuff, but where is it? Where's that terms of reference? We're giving you this money through tax requisition. What is it that you're actually supposed to do?
What can you expect?
What could you expect?
What level of service can you expect?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's that level of service that's important.
Yeah.
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 So that's the key.
clarifying that for community members, but it's also an obligation that we, through policy and bylaw, actually prescribe it as well.
Yeah.
And I articulate that in some of my reporting, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, if the population grows and it changes, then review it. Review that. Okay. I'll move.
If I may, real quick, can I provide, Jack has been so generous to provide us his time today, and maybe Jack, if I can turn the floor over to you for to touch on any comments, feedback, to provide some insight as to the conversation today. Much appreciated, sir. Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody, and thanks for having me join in on the meeting. I think you guys have covered it pretty well. You all know as directors what what needs to be done to support the communities and make sure that they're doing things safely as much as possible. The OFC for the structural side of things, exterior level, that's a perfect level for everybody to do. Rob and Mark have done a great job in coming up with a concept, a plan that I think when Rob does his report, it'll make total sense, and it'll cover everything, both the wildland side of it, what you can do to prepare, great comments about the first responders, because they're going to be there 2 days before wildfire sometimes. And I'm not hammering wildfire, but I'm just saying that's the way it is. So let's use Australia as an example. They have 70,000 people belong to the volunteer wildfire branch. So maybe BCWS needs to get out there and start training some of the local people on how to handle those wildland interface stuff before it gets to the structure, because that's a whole other can of worms. But as far as the there is a lot of stuff. Russell, you mentioned it, of course, with the departments and the responsibilities, the training records, the inventories, the maintenance. But I think you've got a really good team there with Mark and Rob that they will be able to develop a program. And Rob certainly will be able to help out in the administrative stuff. In the fire reporting alone, just so you guys know, or maybe you do already, Rob, I came out and helped Rob do the Gun Lake stuff. Rob's entered 46 fire reports, all done. He got them done in record time. And that's the kind of guy you need to be able to help with that administrative stuff. He's got that background. He's a hard worker, same as Mark. They know what to do. This was a huge learning curve you guys went through in the last 3 months, I got to say. But they did a great job. You should be really proud of them. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jack. The email money transfer is on its way.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Jack. And I completely agree. We're very lucky to have all these folks. And that's all our staff. I mean, everybody through this wildfire season, we didn't really get into the floods yet. But anyways, these guys did an amazing job, and these ladies. And our chair did a great job from the board level. So it's all wonderful. Now we just have to recover from all this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for your expertise.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thanks for having me on, you guys. Enjoy your lunch. You must be getting hungry.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Jack.
And I just make one last comment, and big thank you to Rob and Jack's support as well as we're going through this process. And I think this report is a start of a discussion that needs to happen. It's not, this is the answer, right? This is the beginning of the process that we need to go through, and it's a complicated process that we need to go through with dialogue, and there's many steps we need to take. So I think I know Chief Vendor is very keen in starting this conversation, which we will bring to the board in January, and just continue the discussion going forward. So we appreciate the conversation today. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Move to receive.
So moved.
Please, everybody's. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you all.
Shall we break for lunch? Or do you want to keep going?
Got a couple more items. Yeah, well, we've got to talk about the Lillooet landfill.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna be long.
Hey, let's just break for lunch.
Hey, Russell,
We've got a
Russell,
block
hello?
decision.
Oh, boy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear another conversation going on.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
We can now, yeah.
Oh, you can, good. If we break for lunch, I wonder if we can try to get me hooked up visually again. I'm not sure what the problem is. I had it here that I was in the waiting room.
It won't take very long.
Yeah, we only have 3 items left. I think they can go.
Okay, we'll do it.
They're not controversial.
You're gonna go, I'd rather go straight ahead because this is getting frustrating.
Let's carry on.
I'd like to move $10,000 Area B select funds towards research, review, and planning by the staff with resources as required of the properties adjacent to the Lillooet landfill for irrigation and grazing purposes. I'll move that.
I'll second it. Okay. Moved to second it, call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried.
And I recognize this is quite a complicated ask, but staff done some footwork and they may be able to make some progress on it. That'd be great. Okay.
Okay, correspondence for action, request for funding, Gold Bridge Fire Protection Society.
I'd like to move the funding request, but with an amendment. And the amendment is that Area Select Funds doesn't have the $10,000 at this time, and I'd like to give them the check in the new year when the new funds are reallocated.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Seeing as though we're going to have the fire report delivered in January, would we be able to consider this request following that in case there's conflicts with regard to this request? If we're not funding it into the new year and we're going to be.
We'll wait for the fire report.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot of discussion that we're quite close to the end and what does this, before there was policy discussion about what do you need to do to create a new society for fire? And will this be in contravention to that or will it be in alignment to it?
Well, personally, the key is here that it's for insurance purposes. Some of it's for insurance and some of it's for equipment. So I'd like to see it move forward. They are a society, period. So whether they're going to become a tax service or not, they are a society. It's not that they're applying to be a society, they are a society. And like we talked about, we have to support these societies.
Jen.
I agree, but we have to support it within the context of the greater fire service and review that we've spent quite a lot of time and resource on. It's not to say that it's not important, but it needs to be in context in and of the budget process and the fire services review process. Do you agree? Or do you think that this
So
is?
I think I want to move forward.
But
Just-
with the amended, not paying it until next year.
Yeah.
With the amendment of the money will be given to them in the new year.
In the new year, once the new the approval of the next select in the new year.
Can I ask a question? Oh. Yeah. My question was gonna be, does this fit within your budgeted services review?
Yeah, and I appreciate the want to support this piece, but I feel like giving Rob the room to actually deliver on this project, and part of it is we're still working through the recommendations and understanding it, but what is the best way to support these groups in going forwards? I know there are still learnings from the 2013 report about how we actually structure some of the Bridge or Valley groups and to ensure that they get the best fuss rating overall. I think it would be prudent to allow Rob to finish his analysis of the groups and to lay out the way forwards for for the time being versus potentially, you know what I mean, moving in a direction that may not be supported by our fire chief's recommendations.
This is a society already.
Yeah.
They're a registered society, right? And we talked about terms of reference and setting expectations so that the public knows what they're actually they're there for. And they have requested to look to get information on how they can be a tax service out of it. Nobody's responded yet to that request. And which is, I feel, is wrong. Somebody should have responded. They could have talked about the report that was coming and so on and so forth. So out of respect for them, I want this to move forward.
But
Just to top up on that, I had a good conversation with Andre a few days ago, about an hour and a half conversation. Super appreciated his passion and the fact that they've mobilized so quickly after the disaster. So we did have that preliminary conversation, and I articulated for him sort of the world of fire services delivery from structure through to wildfire. And going forward, I am fully open to establishing more of a partnership and or understanding as to who is trying to do what and where. But I would agree with the conversation here. My take is to just earmark it, put a pause on it. I think we need to establish a policy and a process for what it means to establish a fire service. And that starts with community consultation and a feasibility analysis, I would propose. So my feel is I would agree with the conversation in and around just trying to earmark it and just.
The only issue with, because they are a society already, if they weren't a society, yes, we'll put a pause on it. But they are a society. They need insurance. They need that initial bit of money to help them through some of the things that they're working through. So, and that's why, we've had quite a conversation about all these other little fire departments out there that have had to sign, they're not even fire departments, they're associations, to sign a waiver form, right? And like Vivian has said, we need to support them. So I want to support this new fire society.
So here's an option. They're not going to get the money till January.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing you're worried about is insurance. And that's,
Well, we don't know what their insurance is going to be.
well, didn't they have down here? I thought they had it,
I think we had
4,000,
I thought they had a breakdown.
4,000, and that's reasonable from my experience.
Yeah, 4,000 for their insurance. So why, and then the rest was for firefighting equipment. So let's just do the insurance, because that protects the members of the society. We can do that now. And the firefighting equipment portion of it, leave that till after Rob makes his recommendation at the January. Is that at the EAD meeting in January? It'll come forward first?
Yeah.
I don't think we're booked yet.
Pardon me?
We're not booked at this point in time specifically.
Okay, so it may be in February then, or whatever.
Technically, but if I could top up too, is it's not clear to me what their full intent is and what their desires, what they intend to become as well. And so we continue to have conversations in and around that, what makes sense in that area. In the interim, I feel like there's opportunities for them to establish a committee of some sort between Gunn and Braylorn in the Bridge River Valley. There's definitely opportunity for folks to get involved and kind of just, try to create sort of a unilateral understanding of what the goals and objectives are out there.
Totally. You're correct on that aspect of it, because there was some back and forth between all three of them this year. Some of it through the incident commander, but some of it on their own, right? Where they were actually went away from their area.
And if they're looking to buy equipment, there's opportunities for bulk purchasing and or there might be stuff available through municipal fire, through their turnover programs, and it's just I think some space would be helpful.
One of the things, as you know, because I don't know if you were asked to have sign off on the Braylord fire and Gun Lake fire for another $30,000. Were you asked for the letter of support? No. But they're going again because that's a yearly program, volunteer firefighting equipment. So they're applying again, each of them for $30,000.
What was that through the UBCM CEPF funding stream? Okay.
Were you asked for a letter of support?
No, that wasn't.
So both of those are going for it, and our grant writer looked into this new society, but they have to be a tax service to be able to get that funding. So in your report, you talk about UBCM, providing support to these societies that aren't tax services. Well, they're not eligible for that $30,000.
That's why this review is so important, to get this part of the bigger process. Sorry.
I'd like your suggestion. It's kind of an amendment, another amendment to your sales amendment to, and you do have enough money to fund the director's liability insurance.
We've got that other funding. We got to deal with the grant writer, another $2,000.
You still have enough.
Just barely.
Barely. I can do the math, 7 minus 4 minus 2.
Yeah.
So I support what Russell's saying as a kind of good compromise under the circumstances.
So.
Okay,
Yeah, so then the amendment will read that
to support this
to
application.
support the staff recommendation for 4,000 for insurance purposes.
For the new society.
And the rest of the money will come forward after we see the final report from the fire chief.
And when Sal has more money.
Yeah. And Sal will have more money.
The remaining request comes forward following
The
the
remaining request.
fire service review.
Yeah.
Report.
One thing I just gonna throw there, we have bought over the last number of years, like I'll say, we've funded, Area C has funded a lot of fire money, like to Ponderosa, McGilvery, to stock these people up with pumps, hose, all that stuff. Now they use it for their fire smarting and everything. But you can be damn well assured that if they had a fire on their property, they're going to use it to put it out. They're all trained and there's super organized. Like I say, they should be the poster child for what we're doing. But maybe what we need to do, and I mean, this is going to fall under you again, but we need to do an inventory. And I know like Mike Morley at Ponderosa has got a complete inventory of every piece of equipment that he's got. So that equipment is all mobile, right? So maybe what we need to be thinking about is buying like an SBU trailer, that type of thing.
Yeah.
We load all that equipment into a trailer and then it's deployable. It's not just all bought for Ponderosa or McGilvery. It's stocked in that trailer and it's ready to go to Upper Meadows, to Area B, to Area A, whatever, because I know that this was all bought with Area C money, whatever, but it's all for the benefit of all our folks, right? Now, the way I look at Area A, a lot of people from Area C actually own property on Gun Lake. So you're actually helping your own constituents, whatever, I mean, it's a stretch maybe, but sounds pretty good when you think about it. But anyways, I think that we need to collectively figure out where all that equipment is. And not the Birkin fire stuff or the Meadows fire stuff, the actual fire stuff, but the stuff for these other localities, and then buy a trailer and set it up so it can move around and be deployed wherever it's needed. Then we're not buying 20 pumps and 10,000 mile of hose and nozzles. We've got what we need to go and do an initial attack on a wildfire.
We still need to vote.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay, so we'll let's move to second and call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried.
I'll have
Okay,
to declare conflict of interest on the next one.
okay,
And I'll be pleased to move it last.
As my daughter is an employee of the BRDC and my wife is a director on the board.
so how much of your money are we spending?
Yeah, you're good at it.
$10, and he's getting close. When you take into account the upcoming grant writer. How about that?
So,
I'd like to move that that Area A select funds pay for the Bridge River Valley Community Association 2023 Remembrance Day in the amount of $610. So,
okay. Don't move it.
I'll second that. I'll second it.
Okay, Tony seconded it. So I'll call, I was gonna say,
I can do stuff too.
okay,
I can do stuff too.
yeah, I know you get it. Okay, moved and seconded, call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thanks, Al. Okay, decision on late business. We don't have any? Late business, no. Director's notice of motion. Tony,
I'll move agenda. No, adjournment. Adjournment.
very good, thank you very much.
thank you, Director Rainbow.